Can I just eat it like this? I'm tempted to. I'm tempted to just eat my way through it. Hey y'all, it's Martin. I'm here in the studio today with our whole team, and we're so excited to share with you our recipe of the year, Big Bubbly Focaccia. Lots of tests, lots of opinions, lots of bites of focaccia have been happening at King Arthur headquarters. And listen, what we've ended up with is something that is high rising. It's bubbly. It's packed with olive oil. It's got coarse salt on top. You can make a sandwich, or you can just bake it and eat it plain right out of the oven. The recipe is right down there below. Come along, let's make it. Okay, so let's do this mix. Into the bowl, about 3 cups of flour, which is 360 grams. I'm using my scale here, y'all. Remember that in baking, what we want to maintain are the ratios, the large relationships between flour and water, right? And the way that I can do that is by using my scale. You can also go with cups and teaspoons. I mean, that's what my mother does and has done for how many years? Lots of years. But she's made bread more than most of us. And so she has that knowledge of experience, that sort of gained knowledge, which allows her to know what the dough should feel like. In our case, when we're getting used to bread making and making our way into this beautiful journey, a scale is a great way to ensure that what we want is what ends up in the bowl, okay? Then I'm gonna get some dry ingredients in. I've got some yeast, about 3 grams, which is a teaspoon. I've got a little bit of sugar, about 5 grams. And then I've got about 1.5 teaspoons of salt, which is about 9 grams. We'll get those in, and then I'll give it a little mixy mix. Just want to incorporate things. We don't have to do anything fancy here. I'm just sort of knocking them around in the bowl, making sure that everybody in there is getting friendly. And then I've got some water and some olive oil. Water is 284 grams, or about 1.25 cups. And I've warmed this water up slightly. I want this dough to feel coddled. I want it to feel slightly warm. That environment is what yeasts love. So don't shock them. Don't put ice water in there. Don't do anything like that that would make them feel like they don't want to go to work, right? We want them to go to work. And then I've got some olive oil. Olive oil here is about 18 grams. Okay, dry ingredients, wet ingredients in the bowl. You could use your hand if you wanted at this point. If you have a wooden spoon, I like to use the handle end. You could use that as well, or you could just go in with your scraper, whatever works for you. No rules here. All we want to do is sort of stir to combine to what we would call the incorporation phase. This is like the mixer sort of portion of the show. And mixer, what I mean by that is like everybody's getting to know each other. I'm not going to dump this bowl out on the counter after this, right? I'm just going to leave it in the bowl to rise, and I'm going to use some folding to gather strength. So you want to get everything homogeneous. You want to make sure that there are no dry bits. The dough looks good. It's a soft dough. If you haven't made a focaccia before, it should be a soft dough. If it's real firm, something's off. But again, if you're using that scale to sort of ensure that your ratios are good, I think you're going to find that it's a soft, somewhat sticky dough. Cover this. We're going to come back in 15 minutes for the first fold. You come with me. Okay, so the dough's had 15 minutes to rest, and what's happening during that time is that the yeast, which were dry and in sort of a dormant state, they're waking up. They feel that warmth. They're ready to go to work. And the water is getting to know the flour. It's hydrating, and in that process, it's developing gluten. It's not going to be this big stretchy network yet, but it will be getting started in a nice way. So let's see what we got here. It's not a ton of structure yet, and I'll show you. Put some of this magic water on, and the dough won't stick to your hands. So I have a structure which is actually, you know what, amazingly so, just 15 minutes, and it's already sort of starting to window pane a little bit. I would call it like a soft pane. If I really stretch it thinly, it's going to tear some, but over the course of fermentation, it's going to gain further strength due to a couple things. One, we have a lot of water in the environment. We've guaranteed that through accurate measurements. And two, we're using really good flour, and there's just no way around that. I'm using a very high quality, all-purpose, beautiful flour. Now, I'm going to do the first fold. This is a bowl fold. I'm going to take my hand, slightly moist, and I'm just going to go around the bowl, stretching and pressing to the center. This is sort of an organization. The dough is already on its way, and we're going to sort of help it further begin to form this stretchy, extensible network, which will become this beautiful dough in the end. That's it. First bowl fold done. We're going to put the lid back on, and we'll come back shortly to give a second fold. I don't know why I'm walking over there. I'm actually gonna leave it right here. There's no reason to go over there. I'm just gonna set it right there. Okay. All right, so it's been 15 minutes and we're back for the second bowl fold. And you know, as I'm folding this, I'm thinking about one of the beautiful things of this bread is that you can start it, you know, early in the afternoon and you can have it done in time for dinner. It's not a hard bread. If you're new to bread making, if you're new to hearth breads, if you're new to artisan style breads, it's a great place to start. Look at what's happening here. This dough is incredibly and beautifully extensible, even more so than it was at the first one. It's got this sort of elastic quality, right? Time is working. Just make your way around the bowl. Stretch, press to the middle. Nothing complicated here. You'll notice that the dough has just more tension than it did the first time around. It's exactly what we want. Leave it in the bowl. We'll come back in another 15 minutes and we'll give it another fold. All right, so we're back for bowl fold number 3. It's been about 15 minutes. Don't be too uptight about that. If it's been 30 minutes, that's okay too. Just check in with the dough. That's part of what's going on here is I'm checking in with the dough. And what I see is a sort of matrix which is getting stronger. It's getting stretchier. It's starting to feel marshmallowy, feeling very dough-like at this point. I'm just going to work my way around the bowl, stretching and pressing to the middle. I like to turn mine upside down after each fold. You don't have to do that. You can just leave it in the bowl and sort of forget about it. But that's it. Bowl fold number 3. It's in the books, and we got another 15 minutes, and we'll come back for number 4. Okay, we're back for the 4th bowl fold, and this dough continues to sort of show beautiful signs of life. It's puffy, it's marshmallowy, it's developing strength. It's not going to need a lot from me at this point, just a little bit more organization. I'll make my way around the bowl one time. I'm even seeing some nice bubbles in here, and then I'm going to set it to rise for 1 hour in a nice comfortable condition, 70, 75 degrees, and we'll come back and we'll put it into the pan. That's it. Goodbye. See you in an hour. Okay, so we're back after about an hour and the dough looks great. It's almost doubled in size. It's definitely marshmallowy. It's very active and it's ready to go into the pan. I'm baking in my nice Lloyd pan. This thing browns very well. It takes heat very well and it gives heat very well to the focaccia itself. It's a great pan to use. You can also use some other pans, and there are those instructions in the recipe. I'm going to spray the pan with just a little bit of pan spray just to ensure that when you go to remove it from the pan, it comes out very easily. The other thing that I'm going to do is I have a sheet of parchment that I've cut down to about 16 inches in length, and it's a couple inches wide. I'm going to put that in here to also help you get it out of the pan. Okay, so I got my strip in there, and then if you want, you can give it an additional just little spritz on top of the paper just to make sure that you save yourself any potential for trouble down the road. Now I'm going to put some olive oil in, and the olive oil will actually also help keeping it from adhering to the pan, but it's also there to sort of enhance the crust with some deliciousness. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump the dough into the pan. I'm going to use my flexible scraper again just to make sure that it comes out in sort of one fell swoop. I'm at that point in the dough making process or the bread making process where it's like, don't wake the baby, okay? Should come out in one fell swoop. It looks beautiful. You can see what will become the structure of this beautiful focaccia. You can see this sort of airy matrix. Now I'm going to flip the dough in the pan. If you want to get your hands a little bit oiled, that will help them keep from adhering. Okay, so I've got it in the pan, not terribly graceful, but it's done. And it's ready for the final rise. It doesn't quite fill the pan right now, but over the course of the next rise, about an hour, it's going to sort of relax and get into those corners a little bit, and then we'll be ready to bake. During that last hour, go ahead and cover it. Put a sheet tray on top or something else. If you have a bowl cover, that would work as well. And put it in a nice, comfortable place to rise. While it rises, you're going to want to get your oven preheated and everything else set for the bake. Woo, look at that. You know, we should pause here for a second because it's kind of miraculous what happens over the space of just a couple of hours, right? This dough, which began as this sort of loose mass, somewhat sticky, kind of not much happening, has transformed into this matrix of light, air-filled dough. It's beautiful, it's high, it's bubbly, it's pillowy, it's marshmallowy, it's ready for the oven. So let me show you what we're gonna do next. It's just the dimple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some olive oil on my fingers, And then I'm going to gently press. I'm going all the way to the bottom of the pan, but not necessarily through the dough. And I'm just moving it into the corners a little bit, working my way down. And this is going to give us that classic sort of cobbled, dimpled focaccia look. Okay, so olive oil on your hands, and then I'm going to go in. I'm not too aggressive here, right? If you feel like your fingers are sticking at all, go back and get some more olive oil. I'm not being super aggressive because we've worked hard to get this beautiful structure into the dough. We want it big and bubbly. Now, my finger marks look like they're pretty well distributed. If you see an area where there's like not a dimple, go back and just with one finger, you can sort of add a little bit. But I think we're good. I'm going to leave it right there. Now I'm going to top it. And what do we need? Well, we need a little bit more olive oil. So, tablespoon right on top, get it into those nooks and crannies. Is it going to look like a lot? I mean, it looks like a little bit, but trust me that as it bakes, it'll sort of be absorbed and it'll give the surface this nice shine and aroma, incredible, incredible flavor. And now it's time for a little bit of salt. I'm using a coarse, big flaked salt from Curio Spice Company, one of my favorite places to get good spices. I'm going to put some in my hand so I can sort of distribute it in a way which feels somewhat even, right? And then there is an amount here, you know, it's a garnish, add to taste. And I'm just making sure that it's distributed. The salt's going to add this additional textural sort of point, beautiful, crunchy. You'll come across those crystals as you take a bite. And before you know it, that focaccia will be gone. So the focaccia is ready to go in the oven. My oven is nice and hot. It's 475. You know, when that thing dings that it's hot, it may not necessarily be hot. Give it some extra time. Make sure that the oven is fully preheated. We want this to meet maximum heat and jump as high as possible. That's what's going to give us this beautiful crispness and the open structure, okay? I've got a rack in the lower third. We're going to put it in there. We're going to bake it 15 to 18 minutes. That's the sound of awesome bread right there. Look at that guy. Ooh, she's hot. Okay, so I like the amount of color here. I have some dark spots, I have some lighter spots. I'm gonna put it back in the oven for additional 5 minutes with the oven off. What I wanna do in that time period is draw a little bit of additional moisture out and make sure that I have a crust which is crispy and crunchy. If you don't have as much color as you want, you can put it on an upper rack and you can use your broil setting to add a little bit more color. Just don't walk away from the oven. You will burn it, trust me, okay? So back into the oven. In my case, I've got the color I want and I'm just gonna leave it in there for 5 more minutes to dry out, to crisp up, to get ready for me to enjoy. Okay, all right, the focaccia's out. It's beautiful. Even from this far away, I can smell the bake. I can smell how that olive oil has almost fried that crust where it met the pan. The bottom color is incredible. That's all flavor. Don't go less than that. You can see how the olive oil almost like smoothed it out and shined it up. It's beautiful. It's down in the cracks and crannies. The salt is crisp and crunchy on top. I'm ready to slice it. I think that's enough talking. This focaccia is one of those things, I let it cool a little bit, but I didn't sit around for too long, right? I want to taste this, and you can do the same, you know? Beautiful crunch, beautiful crumb, nice and open, glossy on the top and sides, crunchy if I compress it. Let's have a taste. It's a ton of flavor. You wouldn't necessarily think that a bread of that quality could be made in such a short period of time. Beautifully crisp, beautifully tender, big, bubbly focaccia. It's our recipe of the year, y'all. Thanks for coming along. This is the whole gang at King Arthur Baking Company saying thanks for joining us. Happy baking.